Hi, it's Red Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Lookout, which was released in 2007. There are some spoilers ahead. Let's start the movie without further ado. At the start of the movie, we are shown a road where the main character of the movie, Chris, has his girlfriend besides him, while two other friends are in the backseat. They're having a fun night out. On a risky business, Chris starts driving with the lights off. Their fun doesn't last much, as they crash into a stalled combine on the road. The movie fasts forward to 4 years later. Chris and his girlfriend have survived. They broke up right after the tragic accident as the girl had lost her leg in it. Unfortunately, two other friends have died. From then on, Chris has been suffering from an anger management disorder and also anterograde amnesia, which means that Chris is unable to recall the recent past or create new memories. Because of this, Chris has taken a course to improve his inability to do routine simple tasks. That's why he always writes everything down in a notebook. Besides all of that, he feels extremely guilty about the car crash and the friends who had died. He then pays a visit to his case manager named Janet on schedule. During the conversation, Chris rudely offers Janet an affair and obscenity.
I think about you all the time.
It's later revealed that Chris has a strange problem in which he uncontrollably utters offensive sexual requests and is unable to observe etiquette. Janet also rejects him and adds that she is paid for doing her job. And there's no personal or romantic relationship between them. Chris is supported financially by his family. He gets a voice message from his mom telling him how to prepare food for himself. When he is unable to do it properly, he gets pissed off and kicks things all around the house. Chris has a roommate named Lewis, who is blind. Lewis is a good-hearted and sincere man who has always supported Chris mentally. When Lewis notices that Chris feels angry, he calmly takes care of the food. Chris's bad mood was also worked off due to Lewis's great sense of humor and nice demeanor. Chris works at a small city bank as a janitor on the night shift. His only friend besides Lewis is Ted, who is a kind sheriff's deputy who checks in on Chris regularly. While cleaning the floor, he starts playing with a mopstick as if he were playing hockey. A flashback then reveals that he was a highly talented hockey player before the incident. It's been a while since Chris tried to convince the bank's manager, Mr. Tuttle, to hire him as a bank clerk. But Mr. Tuttle has always refused to do so. At the same time, a parked car across the street is spying on the bank. A guy in the backseat named Gary says, "I know him, he's Chris Pratt." In the next scene, Chris can be seen in a bar. He's trying to hit on a girl next to him, but to no avail as he looks socially awkward. At the same time, Gary approaches them and does the same in one sentence. He greets Chris and claims to be Chris's schoolmate. He also considered him an amazing hockey player during school. Later, when the bartender cunningly tries to charge Chris extra and keeps the change as his own, Gary intervenes and takes Chris's money back. Despite suffering from asthma, Gary was considered to be a sociable, charismatic and confident person by Chris, all the traits he hasn't had since his disease. In the following scene, Chris and Lewis head to Chris's family's house for Thanksgiving. It turns out that Chris comes from a rich family and all of them are from the upper class. But Chris feels very unwelcome among them as the parents belittle him somehow. And his brother makes fun of his clothes, financial situation and abilities, regardless of all the crisis he has gone through. During the conversation, it is revealed that Chris and Lewis are planning to open a restaurant. When Mr. Pratt starts chastising their idea, Chris loses his temper and storms off the dining table. On the other hand, Chris's brother is showing off to Lewis about his business and abilities. They finally manage to get rid of Thanksgiving. On the way back home, Lewis tells Chris that he should never return there, seeing Chris's devastation. The following day, he reaches the same bar. He tries to flirt with another lady using Gary's exact words.
I thought I was good looking.
Well, maybe you were.
At the same time, he is approached by a girl, Lovely, to get him a drink on behalf of Gary. They get to know each other and share with each other about their living. Seeing Chris's problem with recalling her name, Lovely writes her name down on Chris's notepad. The group then headed for Gary's place. As Gary and his girlfriend are enjoying their time on the bed, Chris is getting attracted to Lovely. Lovely then tells him that she has had a major crush on him since he was a hockey player and that she has always watched his games on the hockey rink. Chris rudely tells her that he wants to see her naked. But he gets embarrassed right away. But Lovely calms him down, saying it's okay. They then start making out. Gary drops him off at home, while a fancy car stands by for Gary to take him away. Before leaving, he comments that Chris deserves a much better life. Once Chris returns home, he gets caught by Lewis since he notices the smells of alcohol and a female perfume given off by him. Chris tells Lewis about Gary Spargo and his new girlfriend, Lovely, in detail. But the latter seems to be skeptical about them. As a result of their close friendship, Chris is invited to a farmer's barn gathering of Gary's friends where a group of young people is enjoying their time drinking beer, smoking pot and chilling out. Lovely and Gary's girlfriend are cooking dinner in the kitchen. Once she meets Chris, she starts sharing romantic kisses with him. Chris then gets to know everyone better. The farmhouse is owned by Uncle Bone, according to Gary. But when an elderly man shows up with a walking frame, Chris gets skeptical that something is wrong with the group. Later, in the middle of the night, he approaches the group in the basement and is intrigued by some bank photo pinned on the wall and is taken aback by finding himself in one of the photographs. It turns out that the group is planning to heist the bank, hence the image and information are related to the case. Gary then confides to him the hardship he has gone through because of lack of money and deduces that whoever has the money will own the power as well. He then also mentions Chris's poor financial situation and the fact that his wealthy father intentionally refuses to lend Chris some money to start a business as he wants to see his own son in need. He also tells Chris that if he was him, he would call his father and ask for $10,000, which is like a dime to him. Chris remains silent during the conversation. The following day, as Chris is leaving, Lovely can be seen behind the window feeling sorry for Chris, but she is hugged by Gary, indicating that they're in a relationship. The following day, Chris and Lewis visit a financial service advisor to open their own restaurant. But they are told their funds are too low, hence they might fail to handle the expenses. After several days, when Chris returns home, he finds a fancy leather jacket sent by Lovely as a gift. Later at night, Chris contacts his father and asks for $10,000 to open a small business hockey training session. Mr. Pratt refuses until they meet up and talk about it, which is rejected by Chris as he thinks their discussion will be on nerves just as always and hangs up the phone. He decides to join Gary's gang for the robbery, thinking that this was his only chance to change his life. The following day, Chris provides the gang with a steel tank for welding to open the safe. And then he heads to work to photograph the safe to send it to the group. But he gets caught by Deputy Ted, who suddenly shows up. Chris pretends that he wants to take a picture with the safe and send it to his family to show off. While it seems like Deputy Ted wants to arrest him because of his absurd justification, to Chris's surprise, the naive deputy wants to be the one who photographs him. Later that night, the group can be seen analyzing the safe and the way to open it. Chris takes on responsibility as a lookout, which is quite crucial, as Deputy Ted is unorganized to come by, so it's impossible to plan for him. Back at Chris's place, as Lovely and Chris are enjoying their time together, Lewis overhears them. When Chris falls asleep, Lovely sneaks out of the room. Concerned about Chris, Lewis has been unable to sleep all night. They start a conversation. It's revealed that Lewis lost his eyes in an ecstasy lab due to inadequate ventilation, as they wanted to be millionaires overnight. He considers Gary and Lovely as the ones who are trying to trick Chris into the illegal job. He also wants Lovely to accept it and leave Chris alone. Lovely, in turn, claims to be in love with Chris and calls Lewis a pig. On the other hand, Chris is awake hearing their altercation. Back to the bank, Chris is visited by Ted, who stopped by after taking his pregnant wife to the hospital. During the conversation, Chris pretends to be displeased with Ted's piteous behavior, which might stop Ted from showing up on robbery day. Hearing this, Ted feels guilty despite the fact that his comment was actually kind. Later, at a restaurant, as Lewis is flirting with a waitress, Chris scolds him, telling him his behavior always embarrassed Chris. And then tells him that he's planning to move out soon, which upsets Lewis. Hence, he asks for a check before the food comes. This time, Lewis ignores the waitress, which left her dumbfounded. Elsewhere, Lovely can be seen in a cab. She actually feeling sorry for Chris and is concerned about him. Back to the bank, Chris is approached by Mr. Tuttle, who surprisingly accepts his earlier request about working as a bank clerk and apologies him for being unfair, finding more about his mental condition. Just before the robbery begins, Chris gets anxious and contacts Lewis, telling him he's really messed up and his regret. While he's talking about robbery, the latter thinks it's because of his usual mental issues and replies that he's returning home in 1 hour and he will clean the mess up in a reluctant tone. Just then, Chris is approached by Uncle Bone, knocking on the glass door. Chris then attempts to sit the robbery out, telling Gary that he would never rat them out. Instead, he gets beaten by Gary and also threatens to get back to his job or else he will die. The robbery is initiated. As a gang member, Marty tries to get his hands on the money by melting and drilling the wall. The group is alerted to Deputy Ted's arrival by a gang member. Hearing this, Chris is handed a weapon by Gary, and ordered to use it just in case of an emergency. Ted reveals to Chris that it's his last night on shift, as his baby is about to be born. Chris apologies him for misbehaving to him last time, which Ted kindly accepts. After the job gets done, Chris is asked to bring out the money, and he does so and the money is taken to the car trunk. In the meantime, the deputy shows up at the bank door but is unable to find Chris at the bank. Until he notices Gary's body reflected through glass. Gunfire ensues and Deputy Ted instantly kills 2 of them, and shots Gary as well. The deputy instructs Gary to put his hands on his head. Chris tries to inform Ted that Uncle Bone is behind him, but the latter is too overwhelmed to listen to him and gets shot. On Gary's order, Deputy Ted is finished off by Uncle Bone. Using their distraction, Gary manages to flee through backdoor driving fellow's car, which makes an enraged Gary shout behind him in despair. The tragedy of Ted's death reminds him of the unforgivable mistakes he has made during his life, makes him wail and cry his heart out. Much to his horror, he is stopped by a cop. In a fit of guilt, he tells the cop that he caused his friends to die. But he is known as Chris Pratt, who has some mental issues. As a result, he is let go and even kindly is offered to escort back home. When he pulls off the road, he takes aback when find a bag and a shovel besides the stolen money. It totally makes sense that someone as ruthless as Gary could easily plan to frame and kill him. He drives near to Gary's place. As he's telling Gary on the phone that he already knows about their plan to kill him, Uncle Bone rushes to him and starts shooting, but he manages to flee. He's checking recent strange goings-on in his notepad. There's a comment made by Gary that, whoever has the money has the power as well. It means now he has the power, so he makes it his mission to kill Uncle Bones and Gary to save Lewis, who has been held hostage by the gang. During a phone call, an enraged Gary, who is still bleeding, asks Chris about the money location. Chris instead tells him they must set Lewis free and guarantee their safety. That way, they will get the money place. Gary then threatens Chris that Lewis will die if Chris does not show up. The following day, Chris has a daydream about talking to his ex-girlfriend Kelly, whose life has been ruined by Chris, but Chris becomes comfortable when she finally forgives him. Just then, he is suddenly spotted by gangsters. Chris and Lewis are severely beaten by gangsters. It also turns out Lovely was only a mercenary who worked for the gang. Chris claims that he forgets about the place where he hid the money. But Gary finds the spot according to the notepad. They reach the place where the money was hidden. As soon as Uncle Bone is handed money, he is signaled by Gary to finish them off. Uncle Bone puts Lewis on the knees, pointing the gun at his head. Once the gun is loaded, Chris shoots Uncle Bone to death. Although he could simply have killed Gary, instead, tossed him an asthma inhaler to help himself. He returns the money and confesses his part, while the FBI believes that someone like Chris cannot resist such a crime. On the other hand, it's revealed Marty cut off the wrong wire during the robbery. As a result, the whole robbery had been recorded on a security camera. Chris also took a loan from Mr. Tuttle to open up his restaurant with Lewis. He feels better in his new job and meets Mr. Tuttle and his father as permanent customers in the restaurant. He starts skating and continues his psychological classes, getting better overall. The only dream he has now is seeing Kelly and being forgiven by her. By the day, he has to try his best to forgive himself. That's all from the video. Thanks for watching and take care.